Folks, this is getting ridiculous. I recently learned that the algorithm has unsubscribed some people 2 or 3 times during the past few weeks. Why? It's because the growth of my channel is being throttled randomly. In other words, I gain 300 subscribers, they automatically subtract 270 subscribers randomly. That's the nearest thing I can figure out. And one of them can certainly be you. Don't believe me? Go into the comments sections of my last few videos and see for yourself. Seriously, I have channel members being unsubscribed. Channel members, it is ridiculous. Please check to make sure you're still subscribed, and if you aren't subscribed, please do so and hit the notification bell. We are in a war to stop the destruction of our culture here, but I cannot do it alone. Thank you for subscribing, and now, on to the video. Greetings, my friends. I am Dictor Van Doomcock, the future ruler of Earth, and I am here today to let you folks know Nelson Peltz is coming for Iger and the Disney board, and Disney is absolutely terrified. Why are they terrified? Because Peltz represents an existential threat to the sick, warped little woke bubble that Iger and his rainbow fart-huffing minions have been living in for years now as the Magic Kingdom collapses all around them. There is a massive disconnect between the Disney board and fiscal reality, folks. People think I'm joking, but it seems painfully clear to me that Disney has been taken over by ideologues and extreme propagandists who don't give a shit about profits for their investors, whom they seem to hold in utter contempt, probably because they're capitalists. And the Disney board seems by their actions to be either Marxists who despise profit, or at the very least cultural anarchists who just want to watch our world burn. You know, you can always tell someone's true colors when they're dealing with a crisis, and to Iger and the Disney board, squirming frantically like a toad lifted up in an armored fist, the idea of the Disney board being invaded by capitalists who won't stand for their idiotic brand of cultural division and vandalism at the expense of company profits is a terrifying nightmare. Folks, they're scared. By their deeds shall ye know them. And I am here to report today on the hilarious and desperate actions Disney has taken in response to Nelson Peltz's hostile takeover bid, a string of actions and reactions that convinces me now, more than ever, that Nelson Peltz is the last hope for saving Disney.
Yeah, it's painfully clear now, Doomcock. There's more news right now about Peltz and Disney than we can even keep track of. All because Disney is freaking out and sending out tons of mainstream media propaganda to try and undermine Peltz and discredit him. Believe me, they wouldn't be doing that if Peltz didn't have them crapping in their galoshes.
There's simply no doubt about it. Disney would not be freaking out this bad if what I've suspected for a long time weren't true. Nelson Peltz and Ike Perlmutter, along with other proxy partners aiding him as he storms the Disney battlements, represent the only hope for former Disney fans of a return to wholesome entertainment based on pleasing audiences and, wonder of wonders, making money for investors. Go figure. Let's go ahead and examine the desperate moves that Disney has been making lately to try and blunt Peltz's attacks, moves that will surely convince you that Peltz is our last hope for a woke-free Disney, and that's what these cultural assassins cannot stand. So after literally stuttering during a recent interview when he was asked about Nelson Peltz, Iger preemptively appointed a number of fresh faces to the Disney board as his first step. In a colossal case of horrible timing, just when Nelson Peltz is making the case to investors that Disney is screwing them over and cares nothing for profits, Disney dropped the worst box office bomb in the history of the MCU and possibly the worst box office bomb in history, period, The Marvels. This incredibly public failure has absolutely made the case eloquently and irrefutably that something is rotten at the core of Disney, making Peltz's case for him, and so the bullshit apology tour has begun. And guess what, folks? It wasn't Disney's fault that The Marvels bombed. No. As always, Iger is cravenly hiding behind the skirts of COVID, saying the reason the Marvels sucked so hard and bombed so bad was COVID. In a recent article titled, "The Marvels Suffered from a Lack of Supervision on the Set," says Bob Iger, Disney CEO admits studio has made too many sequels recently. Variety writes, quote, Disney CEO Bob Iger said at the New York Times DealBook Summit via CNBC following the Marvels flopping at the box office that there was a lack of supervision on the set of the film as a result of the COVID pandemic. The combination of pandemic set restrictions and Disney's increased output due to the launch of streamer Disney Plus made it increasingly difficult for studio executives to oversee the onslaught of new productions. Onslaught is a good word for that. The Marvels was shot during COVID, Iger explained. There wasn't as much supervision on the set, so to speak, where we have executives that are really looking over what's being done day after day after day, unquote. In other words, it wasn't our fault. The devil made us do it. The devil, of course, being COVID.
That's funny. I know that COVID has some rather bizarre symptoms when you get right down to it, but I didn't know making movies that suck was one of those symptoms. We knew that COVID makes you lose your taste, but apparently that loss of taste is not confined to your mouth. You also lose your taste in movies. And your taste in business, right, Bob? This is total bullshit, folks. It wasn't COVID that made Disney star Brie Larson in a feminist wet dream that absolutely no one wanted to see. COVID didn't kill this movie. Wokeness killed this movie. Wokeness and the contempt that audiences have now for the Disney brand, which has been massively damaged by Iger and his board. It made Wish a bomb too on Disney's 100th anniversary celebration, and that's exactly why Nelson Peltz is coming for them.
Correct, Harvey Cthulhu. Iger also made Peltz's case for him when he said, quote, there has to be a reason beyond commerce to make a follow-up film to a hit, noting that over the past few years, Disney has made too many, unquote. Ha! Folks, this is damning. This is the most damning thing perhaps that Iger has ever said. There should never be a reason beyond commerce for a corporation. Never. But this statement is the proof that Peltz is correct, that Disney is prioritizing something over profit, and that something is the woke political agenda. Straight from Iger's mouth, folks. He admits that Disney is not motivated by profit, period. So now, let's look at what Peltz is doing and the desperate steps Iger is taking to blunt his assault. Yesterday, the internet exploded with articles proclaiming that Peltz is coming for Disney with a vengeance. CNBC published an article titled, Activist Investor Nelson Peltz Launches Disney Proxy Fight, Seeks Multiple Board Seats. And in that article, they lay out the basics, quote, Activist investor Nelson Peltz and his firm are seeking more than 2 seats on Disney's board, according to a person familiar with the matter, setting the stage for a proxy fight. Trian Fund Management, which Peltz co-founded, said Thursday morning that it intends to take our case for change directly to shareholders, unquote. That, of course, is what Iger fears. That Disney investors will wake up to the fact that Iger's been treating Disney like a butt plug for the woke community, and that's why profits have not been flowing. Once investors wake up to the fact that their investment dollars are going into rainbow flags rather than their bank accounts, there's going to be riots and defections, and so now the article goes into details of the many steps Iger has taken to try and get investors to put down the pitchforks and torches. In this article, CNBC writes, quote, Disney, for its part, suggested the proxy fight stemmed from a personal grudge held by one of Peltz's allies, former Marvel boss Ike Perlmutter. Trian said Disney earlier in the day offered to set up a meeting with the entertainment giant's board, but rejected Trian's bid to join the board, including the addition of Peltz. Trian did not note in a statement how many seats it plans to seek. The news came the morning after Disney added Morgan Stanley CEO James Gorman and former Sky TV boss Jeremy Darroch to its board, a move widely seen as a bid to fend off a potential challenge from Peltz. Former Illumina CEO Francis D'Souza will not seek re-election to the board. While James Gorman and Sir Jeremy Darroch represent an improvement from the status quo, the addition of these directors will not, in our view, restore investor confidence or address the root cause behind the significant value destruction and missteps this board has overseen, Trian said in a statement, unquote. In other words, too little, too late, Disney. So let's review, folks. Iger is trying to discredit this hostile takeover bid as a personal vendetta from Ike Perlmutter, who has thrown his considerable Disney stock holdings into the ring, giving his proxy to Peltz. But this idea that Perlmutter is motivated by vengeance is bullshit. Yeah, Perlmutter probably does hate Iger's guts, but that doesn't change the fact that Disney is striking out at the box office worse than ever. Park attendance is down. Public loathing of the Disney brand is up. Florida has turned on Disney. In short, Disney is a sinking ship. Peltz knows it. Investors are waking up to it, and that's why Iger is making duty in his deities. But here's the kicker, folks. Here is the biggest insult to investors, period. Only now, after years of neglect and indifference to investors, Iger is finally paying a token dividend to investors, not to reward investors, but just to placate them. It's a massive insult to investors who have been starved for any benefit from their stock, and it begs the question, why now? Couldn't they have done this before now? This dividend of 30 lousy cents a share is throwing a crust of bread in Marie Antoinette fashion to starving investors just to keep the peasants from revolting. In the CNBC article, they write, quote, Disney shares are up about 6% this year, far underperforming the S&P 500. The stock was flat Thursday. Later in the day, the company said it would reinstate its dividend at 30 cents a share for shareholders of record as of December 11th, payable January 10th, unquote.
Yeah, 30 cents a share after all this time is anemic and pathetic. I think that this is absolutely awful, and it just goes to show they're only doing all this shit now. You know, the kind of business shit that companies are supposed to do. They're only doing it now under threat to their little woke bubble being pierced by Peltz.
That is correct, Harvey. And in yet another desperate move, Iger and the board, instead of honestly trying to assess what has gone wrong with Disney as a company and a brand, Iger is fighting his best to keep the status quo, avoid accountability to investors at all costs, and keep prioritizing rainbow farts from LGBTQ plus unicorns over making money for investors. And he's doing it by simply changing the rules for appointing board members, trying to stop Peltz from forcing Disney to be accountable to investors. In an article titled, Disney Board Adopts New Rules for Nominating Directors in Wake of Nelson Peltz's Announced Proxy Fight, Variety writes, quote, the same day activist investor Nelson Peltz announced he was launching a proxy campaign to get seats on Disney's board of directors, the company adopted amended bylaws covering nominations of directors by outside parties. Meanwhile, in a bid to win shareholder favor amid the brewing proxy fight, Disney separately Thursday announced a cash dividend of 0.30 cents a share, payable January 10th, 2024, to shareholders of record at the close of business on December 11th, 2023. It's the company's first dividend payments to investors in more than 3 years after Disney suspended them during the COVID pandemic, unquote. Ha! Holy shit, folks. This is Iger's reaction. This is his priority. He's making a public apology tour, paying lip service to the idea of improving quality, paying out dividends, yada, yada, yada. But all of this is a crock of shit, folks. Iger and the board just want to carry on with their woke ways. And I assure you, unless Peltz succeeds in his bid to curb the woke bullshit and hold Disney accountable to investors, this company is doomed. So let us sincerely hope that Peltz succeeds, my friends, and Iger is sent into retirement just a little bit sooner. I will have much more on this crucial battle for the heart and soul of the Walt Disney Company in coming days, folks. But in the meantime, from the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry.
Ha 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 ha.